The grand chamber of the Interstellar Alliance stood silent. 1,347 delegates from across the galaxy waited in their seats. The massive dome above showed the stars of 100 different home worlds. Today was not like any other day. Today they would choose a new supreme representative of United Species. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in the human section. It was small compared to the others. Humans had only joined the alliance 43 years ago. They were still considered the new species, the young ones, the ones who had not yet proven themselves in the great game of galactic politics. Elena watched the holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed the face of Ambassador Crixthal, the current supreme representative. He was from the Zethrani, a species that had been part of the alliance for over 6,000 years. His gray skin and 4 eyes made him look very alien to human standards, but Elena had learned to read his expressions. Right now, he looked tired. "My fellow delegates," Crixthal said, his voice echoed through the chamber. "I have served as your supreme representative for the past 15 cycles. It has been an honor beyond measure, but the time has come for new leadership. The challenges we face require fresh perspectives." Elena looked around the chamber. The Zethrani sat in their purple robes. The Korvaxi, tall and insect-like, clicked their mandibles in their section. The Velthori floated in their water tanks, their tentacles swaying gently. There were so many species, so many worlds, all united under this one alliance. And the humans, just 3,000 of them spread across a small section near the back. They were not important, not yet. That was what everyone believed. "The Council of Elders has reviewed all candidates," Crixthal continued. "We have considered representatives from 17 species. Each has demonstrated great skill in diplomacy and leadership. But today, we make a recommendation that may surprise many of you." Elena felt something strange, a feeling in her chest. She did not know why. "The Council of Elders recommends Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth as the next supreme representative of United Species." The silence broke like glass. Elena's translator chip went wild. Voices shouted in 100 languages. Delegates rose from their seats. The Korvaxi made high-pitched sounds of disbelief. The Velthori turned dark colors that showed confusion. Even the calm Zethrani whispered among themselves. She looked at her fellow human delegates. They were just as shocked as everyone else. Ambassador Chen grabbed her arm. "Elena, did you know about this?" "No," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I had no idea." The noise continued for many minutes. Finally, Crixthal raised his 4 hands. Slowly, the chamber became quiet again. "I understand your surprise," he said. "Many of you wonder why we would choose a human, a species that has only been among us for 43 of your Earth years, a species that has no ancient history of space travel, a species that some of you still consider primitive." Elena felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. Some of those eyes were hostile. She could feel it. "But the Council has observed something remarkable about humans," Crixthal continued. "Something that sets them apart from all other species in the Alliance. Something we need more than ever." A Korvaxi delegate stood up. His name was General Vexkarn, and he commanded the largest military fleet in the sector. "With respect, Supreme Representative, this is madness. The humans have no experience in galactic governance. They barely understand our laws. How can one of them lead us?" "A fair question," Crixthal said. "Let me explain." He pressed a button on his console. The holographic display changed. It showed a timeline of human history, but only the parts that related to space exploration. 43 years ago, we made first contact with the humans. They had just developed faster-than-light travel. Their ship was small and crude. Their technology was basic. Many of us expected them to remain a minor species for centuries. The display showed that first human ship, the Unity 1. Elena remembered learning about it in school. It looked like a toy compared to the massive vessels of other species. But look what happened next, Krixthal said. The timeline moved forward. New ships appeared. New technologies, new diplomatic achievements. The pace of progress was startling. In just 43 years, humans have established trade relations with every major species in the Alliance. They have resolved 17 territorial disputes that other diplomats failed to solve. They have invented 46 new technologies that are now used across the galaxy. Alina did not know these numbers. She had been too busy doing her job to count the achievements. More importantly, Krixthal said, they have done something that no other species has managed. They have made friends. The word hung in the air. Some delegates looked confused. Friend was not a common concept in galactic politics. Alliance members cooperated for mutual benefit. They formed pacts for protection. They traded for profit. But friendship, that was different. The Zethrani have been in this alliance for 6,000 years, Krixthal said. We have many allies. We have many partners. But I cannot name a single species that would call us friends. The humans arrived 43 years ago, and they have genuine friendships with dozens of species. He turned to look at Alina directly. His 4 eyes were kind. Ambassador Vasquez, would you please stand? Alina's legs felt weak, but she stood. She was not very tall. Humans were smaller than most species in the Alliance, but she tried to stand straight and proud. Tell us, Ambassador, Krixthal said, what makes humans different? Why do so many species trust you? Alina took a deep breath. She had not prepared a speech. She had not expected any of this. But she had been a diplomat for 20 years. She knew how to speak from the heart. I do not know if we are different, she said, but I know what we believe. We believe that every species has value, not just for what they can give us, not just for their technology or their resources. They have value because they exist, because they think and feel and dream. The chamber was quiet now. Everyone was listening. When we meet a new species, we do not first ask what they can do for us. We ask what they care about, what makes them happy, what they fear. We try to understand them as people, not just as potential allies or threats. A Velthori delegate raised a tentacle. That is a nice sentiment, Ambassador, but sentiment does not solve real problems. The Alliance faces serious challenges. The darkened swarm threatens our outer borders. Trade disputes grow more violent each year. How would your nice feelings help with these issues? Alina nodded. A fair question. Let me ask you one in return. Why have we failed to stop the darkened swarm? The Velthori was silent. We have failed because we do not work together, Alina said. Each species sends their own fleet. Each species protects their own territory. We call ourselves an alliance, but we act like strangers who happen to share the same space. She looked around the chamber. When humans face a problem, we do not think about what is best for just our people. We think about what is best for everyone. Yes, we look after our own interests. We would be fools not to. But we also understand that helping others is good for us in the long run. General Vexkarn made a clicking sound that his translator rendered as laughter. Pretty words, human. But the Korvaxi have protected this alliance with our military might for 3,000 years. We do not need lectures about cooperation from a species that nearly destroyed their own planet with pollution. Alina smiled. She had been waiting for someone to bring that up. You are right, she said. We nearly destroyed Earth. We poisoned our air and our water. We killed many species that lived alongside us. We were foolish and short-sighted. The general looked satisfied with her admission. But that is exactly why you should trust us, Alina continued. Because we learned. We saw what happens when you ignore problems. We saw what happens when different groups fight each other instead of working together. And we changed. She stepped forward, closer to the center of the chamber. Earth was dying. Our nations were at war with each other over resources. We were on the edge of extinction. And then we decided to stop fighting. Not because we suddenly loved each other. Not because we became perfect. but because we understood that we would all die if we did not cooperate. The chamber was very quiet now. That is what humans bring to this alliance, Alina said. We have already faced the worst case. We have already been on the edge of destruction, and we survived by learning to work together despite our differences. That is a lesson that many species in this alliance still need to learn. Ambassador Krixthal stood up slowly. He was old, even by Zthrani standards. His movements were careful and deliberate. "Thank you, Ambassador Vasquez," he said. "You have just demonstrated exactly why the Council chose you. You are honest about your failures, you learn from your mistakes, and you believe in the power of cooperation." He looked out at the assembly. "The vote will take place tomorrow. I urge all delegates to consider carefully. The future of this alliance may depend on your choice." The session ended, but Alina knew that the real work was just beginning. That night, Alina sat in her small quarters on the human delegation ship. The room was plain compared to the luxury that other ambassadors enjoyed. Humans had not been part of the alliance long enough to build grand embassies. Her communicator buzzed constantly with messages. Most were from human officials on Earth, asking what was happening and what they should do. Some were from other delegates, asking for meetings or making offers. A few were threats. She read one from an anonymous sender. "Humans do not belong in leadership. If you accept this position, you will regret it." Alina deleted the message. She had received worse during her career. The galaxy was full of species who did not like humans. Some were afraid of how fast humans had grown. Others were jealous. Still others simply did not understand human ways. There was a knock on her door. "Come in," she said. The door opened to reveal an unexpected visitor. It was Counselor Merthessa, one of the highest-ranking members of the Velthori species. Her tank floated on anti-gravity supports, allowing her to move through the ship's corridors. Her tentacles waved in patterns that Alina had learned to recognize as greeting. "Ambassador Vasquez," Merthessa said through her translator, "I hope I am not disturbing you." "Not at all, Counselor. Please come in." The Velthori floated into the room. Alina noticed that she had come alone, without the usual guards and assistants that high-ranking officials brought with them. "I wanted to speak with you privately," Merthessa said, "before tomorrow's vote." Alina nodded. "I appreciate that. Would you like some water? I can adjust the temperature and salinity if you prefer to join me in drinking." The Velthori made a pattern that meant surprise. "You know about Velthori drinking customs?" "I studied your culture when I first became an ambassador," Alina said. "I believe that understanding other species is the most important part of my job." Merthessa's tentacles rippled with what looked like pleasure. "This is exactly what I wanted to discuss. I have watched humans for many years. I have seen how you interact with other species. You are unlike anyone else in the Alliance." "How so?" "You listen," Merthessa said. "When I speak with Korvaxi delegates, they wait for me to finish so they can talk. When I speak with Zthrani, they analyze my words for political advantage. But when I speak with humans, you actually try to understand what I am saying." Alina smiled. "That is a kind thing to say, Counselor." "It is not meant as kindness. It is an observation." The Velthori floated closer. "I came to tell you that you have the support of the Velthori delegation. All 47 of our votes will go to you tomorrow." Alina felt her heart skip. The Velthori controlled some of the most important trade routes in the galaxy. Their support would be extremely valuable. "Thank you," she said. "May I ask why you are supporting me?" "Because you asked," Merthessa said simply. "I asked." "Not today. 3 years ago. You came to a small Velthori colony that was having problems with their water purification system. The colony was not important strategically. It had no resources that humans needed, but you came anyway." Alina remembered that mission. It had been a minor diplomatic task, assigned to her because no one else wanted to go to such a remote place. You spent 4 days on that colony, Marthessa continued. You swam with the children. You ate our food even though it made you sick. You asked about our history and our art and our dreams. And when you left, you sent engineers to help fix the water system. You did not ask for anything in return. It was the right thing to do, Alina said. Exactly. Marthessa's tentacles formed a complex pattern. That is why we trust you, not because of speeches or politics, because of small acts of genuine kindness. The Velthori remember such things. After the counselor left, Alina sat alone in the dark for a long time. She thought about all the small missions she had done over the years, the trade negotiations that no one cared about, the cultural exchanges with minor species, the time she spent learning languages and customs and histories. She had never thought of these things as important. They were just part of being human, part of how she was raised. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the things that humans considered normal were actually extraordinary. The next morning, the Grand Chamber was even more crowded than before. News of the human nomination had spread across the galaxy. Observers from species who were not even part of the Alliance had come to watch. The media drones of 100 different networks floated above the delegates, recording everything. Alina took her seat in the human section. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she tried to hide it. Billions of beings were watching. The fate of the Alliance might rest on what happened today. Ambassador Crixthal called the session to order. We will now proceed with the vote for Supreme Representative. There are 3 candidates remaining. Ambassador Alina Vasquez of Earth, Grand Admiral Vexcarn of the Korvaxi Empire, High Sage Zenthos of the Zethrani Federation. Alina looked at her opponents. The Grand Admiral sat in his gleaming armor, surrounded by military aides. He had argued against her yesterday, but she held no anger toward him. He was doing what he thought was right for his people. High Sage Zenthos was ancient, even older than Crixthal. He had been a leading figure in the Alliance for centuries. His wisdom was legendary. Many expected him to win. Before we vote, Crixthal said, each candidate may make a final statement. Grand Admiral, you may begin. Vexcarn stood up. His armor made clicking sounds as he moved. Fellow delegates, the Alliance faces threats on every border. The darkened swarm grows stronger each day. Our enemies watch us for weakness. This is not the time for experiments. This is the time for strength. He pointed at Alina with one of his clawed limbs. The humans have been with us for only 43 years. They do not understand our ways. They do not know our history. How can they lead us in times of war? He struck his chest with his fist. The Korvaxi have protected this alliance for 3,000 years. Our fleets have defeated countless enemies. Our warriors have died for species we barely knew. We understand what it means to sacrifice for the greater good. He sat down to applause from the Korvaxi section and several allied species. High Sage Zenthos rose slowly. His voice was soft but carried across the chamber. I have watched this alliance grow for 800 years. I have seen great leaders rise and fall. I have seen terrible wars and long periods of peace. He looked at Alina with his 4 ancient eyes. I am impressed by the human ambassador. She speaks with wisdom beyond her years, but wisdom alone is not enough. Experience matters. Knowledge of our customs matters. A supreme representative must understand the deep history of every species, every conflict, every treaty that has shaped our alliance. He bowed slightly. I offer my 800 years of experience. I offer my knowledge of every law and tradition. I believe I am best equipped to guide the alliance through the challenges ahead. He sat down to polite applause from many sections of the chamber. Now it was Alina's turn. She stood up slowly. She could feel the eyes of the galaxy upon her. I want to thank Grand Admiral Vexcarn for his service to the Alliance, she began. The Korvaxi military has indeed protected us for thousands of years. Without their sacrifice, many of us would not be here today." The admiral looked surprised by her praise. He nodded slightly. "And I want to thank High Sage Zenthos for his centuries of wisdom. His knowledge has guided the Alliance through countless difficulties. We are all in his debt." The sage also nodded, though he seemed suspicious of her approach. "But I must disagree with both of my opponents on one point," Alina said. "They believe that the Alliance needs more of what we have always had, more military strength, more ancient wisdom, more of the same." She stepped forward. "I believe the Alliance needs something new, not because the old ways are bad. They have served us well, but the challenges we face today are different from the challenges of the past." She pointed up at the dome, where the stars shone bright. "The darkened swarm is not just a military threat. They are different from any enemy we have faced. They do not want territory or resources. They want to destroy everything. You cannot defeat them with only military force. You cannot negotiate with them using ancient diplomatic tricks." She looked around the chamber. "To defeat the swarm, we need to work together in ways we never have before. We need to share technology and resources without counting the cost. We need to trust each other completely, even species that we have fought with for centuries." She paused. "Humans are good at this, not because we are better than anyone else, but because we have practice. On Earth, we had hundreds of nations, thousands of cultures, billions of people who all thought differently. We learned to work together because we had no choice." General Vexkarn stood up. "With respect, Ambassador, the Korvaxi also have many nations and cultures. What makes humans special?" Alina smiled. "A fair question, let me answer with a story." She turned to address the whole chamber. 20 years ago, I was a young diplomat assigned to a peace conference. The Thoraki and the Velthori were fighting over a trade route. Hundreds had died. Neither side would compromise. She looked at Counselor Merthessa, who was watching intently. "I spent weeks trying to find a solution. Nothing worked. The Thoraki wanted control of the route. The Velthori wanted the same. There was no middle ground." She paused. "Then I did something that my superiors told me was crazy. I invited leaders from both sides to a dinner on my ship. Not a formal diplomatic dinner, just food and conversation." The chamber was very quiet. "At that dinner, I asked them about their families, their children, their hopes for the future. I learned that the Thoraki leader had a daughter who was sick. I learned that the Velthori leader had lost his mate in the fighting." Alina's voice was soft now. By the end of the night, they were not enemies anymore. They were two beings who had suffered loss and wanted peace for their children. They reached an agreement the next day. Not because I was clever, not because I had some brilliant plan, but because I helped them see each other as people instead of enemies. She looked out at the delegates. "That is what humans bring to the Alliance. We believe that every conflict can be resolved if you help people understand each other. We believe that friendship is stronger than force. We believe that kindness is not weakness." She took a deep breath. "If you choose me as supreme representative, I will not promise military victories or ancient wisdom. I will promise to listen to every species. I will promise to find common ground where none seems to exist. I will promise to help us work together as true allies, not just partners of convenience." She sat down. The chamber was silent. Ambassador Krixthal stood up. "Thank you to all three candidates. We will now proceed with the vote. Each delegation has until midday to cast their ballots." The voting began. Alina returned to her seat and tried to stay calm. The next few hours would determine everything. The human delegation was nervous. Ambassador Chen kept checking the vote tallies as they came in. Some species voted immediately. Others took their time, debating among themselves. The Velthori voted first. All 47 votes went to Alina, as Merthessa had promised. The human delegates cheered quietly. Then the Korvaxi voted. All 93 votes went to Vexkarn. That was expected. The Zthrani voted next. They were the largest delegation with 120 votes. Alina held her breath. The votes were split, 78 for Zenthos, 42 for Alina, none for Vexkarn. Ambassador Chen did quick calculations. This is going to be very close. We need at least 400 more votes to win. Alina nodded. She watched as more species cast their ballots. The Thrakari gave all their votes to Vexkarn. The Mendel Federation split their votes between Alina and Zenthos. The Outer Rim Coalition voted entirely for Alina. At midday, Krixthal called for the final count. The holographic display showed the results. Grand Admiral Vexkarn, 389 votes. High Sage Zenthos, 412 votes. Ambassador Alina Vasquez, 546 votes. Alina had won. The chamber erupted. Human delegates hugged each other. Many other species applauded, but not everyone was happy. The Korvaxi section was silent. Some of Zenthos' supporters looked angry. Vexkarn stood up slowly. The chamber became quiet, waiting to see what he would do. He walked toward Alina. His armor clicked with each step. His face was unreadable. Alina stood to meet him. She did not know what to expect. The Grand Admiral stopped in front of her. He was twice her height. His claws could cut through metal. Then he bowed. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said, "I opposed your candidacy because I did not think humans were ready to lead. I was wrong." Alina felt tears forming in her eyes. "You won this election fairly," Vexkarn continued. "You convinced species that have never agreed on anything to support you. That takes skill I did not recognize." He straightened up. "The Korvaxi military is at your service, Supreme Representative. Use us well." He turned and walked back to his seat. The chamber exploded with applause. High Sage Zenthos approached next. His old face showed something like a smile. "You remind me of myself 800 years ago," he said. "Young and full of hope. I thought I could change everything." Alina nodded respectfully. "I hope to learn from your wisdom, High Sage." "You will learn that hope alone is not enough," Zenthos said. "But you will also learn that it is necessary. The Alliance has become too practical, too calculating. Perhaps we need someone who still believes in kindness." He bowed slowly. "My knowledge is yours to command, Supreme Representative." As Alina accepted the formal position of Supreme Representative, she felt the weight of 1,000 worlds settle on her shoulders. This was only the beginning. That evening, Alina stood on the observation deck of the Alliance headquarters. Below her, ships from 100 worlds flew in formation, a display of unity in honor of the new Supreme Representative. The stars above seemed brighter than ever. Ambassador Chen joined her at the window. "Congratulations, Alina, or should I say, Supreme Representative Vasquez." Alina smiled tiredly. "Alina is fine, at least when we are alone." Chen nodded. "The whole of Earth is celebrating. The news networks are calling it the greatest achievement in human history." "It is not my achievement," Alina said. "It belongs to every human who came before me, every diplomat who built trust, every scientist who shared knowledge, every teacher who helped alien children learn." She looked out at the stars. "Humanity did this together. I am just the face they chose." Chen was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "What will you do first?" Alina had been thinking about this all day. The challenges facing the Alliance were enormous. The darkened swarm, trade disputes, ancient grudges between species, political corruption, resource shortages. Where did one even begin? "I am going to have dinner," she said. Chen looked confused. "Dinner?" "Yes, I am going to invite leaders from 20 different species. Not for a meeting, not for negotiations, just for dinner and conversation. She turned to face him. I am going to ask them about their families, their hopes, their fears. I am going to help them see each other as people, not just representatives of their species. Chen smiled slowly. That sounds very human. It is, Alina said, and that is exactly the point. Far across the galaxy, in the darkness between stars, something stirred. The darkened swarm had heard about the new supreme representative. They had watched the election with their strange senses that detected patterns across vast distances. They did not understand this human called Alina Vasquez. She was not strong like the Korvaxi. She was not ancient like the Zethrani. She was not wise in the ways they understood wisdom. But she made them uneasy. The swarm had destroyed many civilizations. They had faced great warriors and brilliant strategists. They had always won. But they had never faced something like this, a leader who believed in kindness, an alliance that might actually work together. For the first time in millennia, the darkened swarm felt something unfamiliar. Fear. 3 months after Alina became supreme representative, the alliance was already changing. Ships from different species trained together for the first time. Scientists shared research without demanding payment. Old enemies began talking to each other. Not everything was perfect. Some species still refused to cooperate. Some leaders still plotted against each other. Change was slow and difficult. But the direction was clear. Alina worked 18 hours a day. She met with delegations from every corner of the galaxy. She listened to complaints and concerns. She found solutions that made everyone slightly unhappy, which meant they were probably fair. She also ate a lot of dinners. The dinner tradition had spread throughout the alliance. Leaders who had never spoken except through formal channels were now sharing meals. They talked about their children, their hobbies, their dreams. Slowly, friendship was becoming normal. One day, High Sage Zenthos came to Alina's office. He moved more slowly now, his ancient body finally showing its age. I came to thank you, he said. Alina looked up from her work. For what, High Sage? For reminding me why I became a diplomat 800 years ago. He sat down carefully. I had forgotten. I had become so focused on power and politics that I forgot the point was to help people. Alina smiled. You taught me that in your own way. Your knowledge of the Alliance's history has been invaluable. Zenthos made a sound that was like a laugh. I taught you facts and procedures. You taught me something more important. You taught me that the future matters more than the past. He leaned forward. There is something I must tell you about the darkened swarm, something that no one else knows. Alina felt a chill. What is it? 800 years ago, when I was young and foolish, I made contact with them. I thought I could negotiate, find common ground, end the threat peacefully. His 4 eyes were heavy with old guilt. They showed me something, a vision of their purpose. They do not destroy for the sake of destruction. They believe they are saving the galaxy from itself. Alina frowned. What do you mean? The swarm believes that individual consciousness is a disease, that separate species, separate minds, separate dreams are a form of suffering. They want to merge everything into one perfect whole, one mind, one purpose, no conflict because no difference. Alina felt her blood run cold. That is horrible. Is it? Zenthos asked. Think about what the Alliance has been like for thousands of years. Constant fighting, wars that killed billions, species that hate each other for reasons no one remembers. Is that not also horrible? Alina stood up and walked to the window. Below, ships from a dozen species flew together in peaceful formation. It has been horrible, she admitted, but that does not mean the solution is to erase everything that makes us different. Our differences are what make us interesting. They are what make life worth living. She turned back to face Zenthos. The swarm's vision is not peace. It is death. Real peace means different beings learning to live together, not being forced into some kind of hive mind. Zenthos nodded slowly. That is what I eventually realized. That is why I never told anyone about my contact with the swarm. I was ashamed of having considered their vision. He stood up with difficulty. But I am telling you now because I believe you can do what I could not. You can show the galaxy that cooperation does not require losing ourselves. You can prove that kindness is stronger than control. Alina took his hand gently. Thank you for trusting me with this, High Sage. After he left, Alina sat alone for a long time. The threat of the darkened swarm was even worse than she had imagined. They were not just destroyers. They were believers in a terrible idea. To defeat them, the Alliance would need to prove that their way was better. They would need to show that different species could work together while still being themselves. It was exactly what Alina had been trying to do all along. 6 months into Alina's term, the darkened swarm attacked. They struck at the outer colonies of 7 different species simultaneously. Their ships emerged from the void like shadows, their weapons tearing through defenses that had stood for centuries. The Alliance was caught off guard. Despite all the training and preparation, no one was ready for the scale of the assault. Alina called an emergency session of the Grand Chamber. Delegates from across the galaxy appeared via holographic projection, their faces showing fear and anger. We have lost contact with the Korvaxi outpost at Zeta 7, General Vexgarn reported. His voice was strained. 8,000 warriors, all gone in less than an hour. The Velthori trade station at Nexus Point is under attack, Counselor Merthessa added. We are losing. Similar reports came from every corner of the Alliance. The swarm was everywhere at once. Alina felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. Billions of lives depended on her decisions. One wrong choice could doom entire worlds. She took a deep breath. We have prepared for this, she said. The joint defense protocols are in place. Korvaxi fleets moved to support the Velthari at Nexus Point. Zethrani ships reinforced the outer rim. Human carriers deploy to provide medical and rescue support everywhere you can reach. The orders went out. Ships began moving across the galaxy. But Alina knew that military response alone would not be enough. The swarm was too powerful, too numerous. They needed something more. She needed to understand the enemy. High Sage Zenthos, she said. You once made contact with the swarm, can you do it again? The ancient Zethrani looked shocked. Supreme Representative, that contact nearly destroyed my mind. The swarm does not communicate like we do. They share consciousness directly. It is overwhelming. I know, Alina said, but I need to try. I need to understand what they want. Zenthos was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will help you, but you must be careful. If you let them in too deeply, you may not come back. The preparations took 3 days. 3 days while battles raged across the galaxy. 3 days while the death toll climbed into the millions. Zenthos set up a special chamber in the heart of Alliance headquarters. Ancient Zethrani technology, designed to amplify mental connections, hummed with power. Cushions and monitors surrounded a central platform where Alina would sit. This device will boost your consciousness, Zenthos explained. It will allow you to reach out to the swarm's hive mind, but it will also make you vulnerable to their influence. Alina nodded. She had already made peace with the risks. Some things were worth dying for. If I do not come back, she said, tell Earth that I love them, all of them, even the ones who made mistakes. She sat on the platform and closed her eyes. The world fell away. Alina found herself floating in darkness. Not the darkness of space, but something deeper. The darkness between thoughts, between moments of awareness. Slowly she became aware of other presences. Millions of minds, all connected, all part of something larger, the swarm. They noticed her immediately. a tiny point of separate consciousness reaching out from the chaos of individual minds. Who are you? The question was not in words. It was a direct probe, a demand for her to open herself up. Alina did not resist. She let them see her memories, her childhood on Earth, her training as a diplomat, the dinners and conversations and small acts of kindness that had defined her career. She let them see everything. The swarm was confused. They had expected fear, resistance, hostility. Instead, they found something strange, a mind that was genuinely curious about them. Why do you not fight? Alina focused her thoughts carefully. I want to understand you. I want to know why you do what you do. There was a long pause. Then the swarm showed her their history. They had once been like the Alliance species. Individual minds, individual bodies, individual desires. They had fought wars. They had destroyed ecosystems. They had nearly annihilated themselves with their conflicts. Then they had found another way. A technology that merged minds, that erased the boundaries between individuals. No more war because there was no more difference. No more suffering because there was no more separation. They had become one, and in becoming one they had found peace. We offer this gift to all species, the swarm said. We end their suffering. We end their conflict. We make them whole. Alina understood now. The swarm was not evil. They genuinely believed they were helping. They saw individual consciousness as a disease, and they thought they were providing the cure. But they were wrong. I see what you have done, Alina thought back to them, and I understand why you think it is good, but you are missing something important. The swarm was curious. What are we missing? Joy, Alina said. Love, surprise, the feeling of meeting someone different and discovering that you like them anyway. She showed them her own memories. The first time she had made an alien friend, the pleasure of learning a new language, a new culture, the deep satisfaction of helping two enemies become allies. These things only exist because we are different, she said, because we are separate. If everyone is the same, there is no meeting of minds, there is no discovery, there is no growth. The swarm was silent. They were processing what she had shown them. Your way causes suffering, they finally said. War, death, hatred. Yes, Alina admitted. It does, but it also causes love, art, music, friendship. These things cannot exist in your perfect unity. You have ended suffering, but you have also ended everything that makes life worth living. She showed them more memories. A Korvaxi general learning to respect human courage. A Velthori counselor swimming with human children. Ancient enemies sharing meals and discovering common ground. This is what the Alliance is becoming, Alina said. Not unity through force, unity through choice. We are learning to work together while still being ourselves. The swarm was troubled. Alina could feel their vast collective mind struggling with ideas it had never considered. We have been doing this for millions of years, they said. We have merged countless species. Are you saying it was all wrong? Alina felt compassion for them. They were not monsters. They were beings who had lost something precious and did not even know it. I am saying there is another way, she said gently. A harder way. A way that requires patience and kindness and the willingness to accept differences. But it is a better way. She showed them her vision of the future. An alliance where every species contributed their unique gifts. Where diversity was celebrated, not erased. Where peace came from understanding, not absorption. You do not have to keep destroying, she said. You could join us instead. You could learn to be individuals again. It would be difficult, it would be painful, but you would rediscover things you have forgotten. The swarm was silent for a long time. Then Alina felt something extraordinary. Individual minds within the vast collective were stirring. Beings who had been merged for millions of years were remembering what it had been like to be separate, to have their own thoughts, their own dreams, their own identities. Some of them wanted it back. We must consider, the swarm said. Finally, for the first time ever, there was uncertainty in their collective voice. We will stop our attack. We will think about what you have shown us. Alina felt herself being gently pushed away, back toward her own body, back toward the world of individuals. But before she left, she heard something remarkable, not from the collective voice, but from one tiny mind within it. Thank you, it said. I had forgotten my name. I am starting to remember. Alina opened her eyes to find herself back in the chamber. Zenthos was staring at her with all four eyes wide. You did it, he whispered. The attacks have stopped. The swarm is withdrawing. Alina smiled tiredly. They are not defeated. They are thinking. That is better. She stood up shakily. Tell the Alliance that we have won a battle but not the war. The swarm will be back, but next time they might come as friends instead of enemies. Word of what Alina had done spread across the galaxy. She had faced the swarm alone, armed only with her mind and her message of compassion, and she had done what armies could not. She had made them question themselves. The celebrations were massive. Humans were no longer seen as the new species, the young ones, the beginners. They were heroes. They had shown the galaxy what true strength looked like. But Alina did not celebrate. She was too busy planning for the future. In her office, she met with leaders from every major species. The Korvaxi came with plans for new defenses, in case the swarm returned to fight. The Velthori brought proposals for expanded trade to strengthen the Alliance economy. The Zethrani offered their wisdom on how to maintain unity during difficult times. But Alina had something different in mind. We need to prepare, she said, not for war but for peace. If the swarm decides to change, to become individuals again, they will need help. Millions of beings who have never known separate consciousness, suddenly becoming aware of themselves. It will be terrifying for them. General Vexkarn looked skeptical. You want us to help the enemy? I want us to help beings who are suffering, Alina said. That is what the Alliance should be about. That is what makes us different from what they were. She looked around the room at the varied faces, the different shapes and colors of dozens of species. When Earth almost destroyed itself, we learned that the only way to survive was to help each other. We learned that enemies can become friends. We learned that compassion is not weakness. She stood up. Now we have a chance to show the whole galaxy what that means. We can show the swarm that there is a better way to live. We can show them that individuals, working together by choice, can create something more beautiful than any forced unity. She smiled. That is what humans believe, and today I think the Alliance believes it too. One by one, the leaders in the room nodded. Some still looked uncertain, some still had doubts, but they were willing to try. It was a start. 1 year after Alina became Supreme Representative, the galaxy was transformed. The darkened swarm had not returned to fight. Instead, small groups of them had approached Alliance outposts, asking questions. How did individuals make decisions? How did they solve conflicts without merging minds? How did they bear the loneliness of being separate? The Alliance sent ambassadors to answer their questions. Not soldiers, not scientists, but ordinary beings from 100 different species. They shared meals with the swarm emissaries. They told stories about their lives, their families, their dreams. Slowly, the swarm began to change. It would take centuries for them to fully transform. Millions of years of merging could not be undone quickly, but it was happening. Individual minds were separating out of the collective, rediscovering who they had been before they were absorbed. Some of them took new names. Some of them made friends with Alliance citizens. Some of them even fell in love. Alina watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. She had not done it alone. Every being in the Alliance had played a part. Every act of kindness, every moment of understanding, every dinner shared between former strangers had contributed to this change. On the anniversary of her election, She gave a speech to the Grand Chamber. 1 year ago, you took a risk on humanity. You chose a young species to lead an ancient alliance. Many of you doubted that decision. She looked around at the delegates, Korvaxi and Velthori, Zethrani and Thoraki, and dozens of others. Among them now sat a few former swarm members, their unique blue skin marking them as recent additions to the alliance. I want to thank you for that trust, not on behalf of humanity, but on behalf of all of us, because this year has proven something important. She smiled. We are all capable of change. We are all capable of kindness. We are all capable of seeing our enemies as future friends. She pointed to the former swarm delegates. These beings once wanted to absorb us all into their collective. Today, they sit among us as individuals, learning what it means to be free. That is the power of compassion. She took a deep breath. Humanity is honored to serve the Alliance, but we do not want to lead forever. We want every species to learn what we have learned. We want every being to discover the strength that comes from helping others. She raised her hand in the traditional gesture of Alliance unity. Together, we are something more than any of us could be alone, not because we have merged into one, but because we have chosen to stand beside each other, different, separate, and free, but united in purpose. The chamber erupted in applause. Human delegates hugged their alien colleagues. Former enemies shook hands. The future stretched out before them, full of challenges and possibilities. And in the center of it all stood Elena Vasquez, a simple diplomat from a young species, who had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human. Later that night, Elena stood on the observation deck one last time. The stars were as beautiful as ever. Ambassador Chen joined her, as he often did. "Are you happy?" he asked. Elena thought about the question. She had worked harder this past year than she had ever worked in her life. She had faced threats and criticism and doubt. She had made mistakes. She had lost friends. But she had also helped build something extraordinary, an alliance that was becoming a true community, a galaxy that was learning to choose kindness over fear. "Yes," she said, "I am happy." She looked up at the stars. When humans first went to space, we did not know what we would find. We hoped for friends but expected enemies. We carried weapons but also offered handshakes. She turned to Chen. "I think the galaxy is starting to understand why. We believe in people, all people, human or alien, ancient or young, united or individual. We believe that everyone deserves kindness." She smiled. And today, the galaxy is starting to believe it too. The stars shone down on them, a billion points of light representing a billion possibilities. The future was uncertain. There would be more challenges, more conflicts, more difficult decisions. But the Alliance was ready. Together,